Welcome to Shifting Religious Concepts. We are SRC, and we're so pleased to be here with you today for a novel look at the Bible and what it means for all of us. My name is Mark Thomas. I'll be moderating today's program. During the show, remember that we encourage you to ask questions or make comments by raising your hand in the Zoom feature, and we will do our best to answer those questions as we go. Okay, we have a great panel today. We're featuring an Aladi. Archie is not here. I guess he has technical issues. Maybe he'll show up at some point. We'll see. Dr. Kadar Griffo's with us, Tamisha Burgess, and Lavelle Rouser. All regulars now. Really good to see you all this morning. All of these SRC contributors have spent many years pursuing their own areas of interest. They all bring something unique and relevant to our conversations. Last week was a really good example of that as we covered the first part of chapter 7 in the book of Revelations. One thing to keep in mind as we proceed through Revelations is the story itself. Sometimes we tend to concentrate on one verse or on one element of what the book is telling us and temporarily lose sight of the context that it's all presented in. These details we present are fascinating and important in their own right, but they are even more amazing when experienced through the story that is Revelations. Pastor Archie oftentimes reminds us of the initiate in the story, and then Anala will steer us back to how Revelations pertains to our present day lives. SRC wants the audience to keep in mind as we talk about all this amazing allegory that this story is about a person who is in spirit or who is meditating and so journeys through the levels of consciousness. This higher consciousness is in all of us from birth. It is the God who we are. Revelation presents this as though the journey takes place in a short time, but we know it often takes years to make this journey, sometimes even lifetimes. So that brings us to this lifetime and today, where we hope you're excited to sit in on the 13th installment of the SRC series of the Book of Revelation. If you missed any of our previous episodes, don't forget you can find them all on the SRC YouTube channel. Just write in Shifting Religious Concepts on YouTube. I promise you will learn something new every time you watch one of these videos. So let's get going on today's show. Last week we covered the first 8 verses of chapter 7 in Revelations. Brother Griff led the conversation off by explaining in detail what the significance of the 4 winds and 4 angels were, and we then talked about the seals and the great significance of the 144,000 from the tribes of Israel, as told in verse 4. And Brother Lavelle gave us a great insight on some of these numbers, and especially the significance or vibration of the number 9. So, Dr. Griffo, let's get going. As we mentioned, we are through the first 8 verses of chapter 7, where we talked about the 144,000, who we know refers to our own 7 chakra. As I read this, I felt we were being told about a great ceremony or even a celebration of all the chakra, that the 6 chakra whose seals have already been opened need to be present when the 7th and final seal is open. So let's set the stage there in verse 9 of chapter 7, Dr. Griffo, where a great multitude is gathering. So please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. So we're going to start out with verse 9. After this, I saw a vast crowd, too great to count, from every nation and tribe and people and language, standing in front of the throne and before the Lamb. They were clothed in white robes and held palm branches in their hands. So this is dealing with 2 aspects here. We just had Easter about a week or so ago. Yes, we're on chapter 7. Well, we just had Easter a couple of weeks ago, and that Friday before they had Palm Sunday. And that is based off of the fact that the spring, this is used as a symbol for spring or a symbol of regeneration or renewal or regrowth. And the other part of that is they said that they were clothed in white robes and around the throne. So as we said last week, the throne resides inside of your head between your 2 temples. And is flanked by both the right hemisphere and left hemisphere of the brain. And that's where God resides, in this area right here. So when you look at the fact that they were clothed in white robes, white always symbolizes purity. It's one of the highest spiritual colors that exist. So as we've spoken about so many times on SRC about being washed, when you go through the process of alchemy, starting again with the black or death, and then being burned with fire, which is the red, and the ashes from that, from consuming, burning up your desires, leaves the white or the revised phoenix. So this is where they get the white robes from. It's not literally a white robe, even though if you look at various cultures, from the Rastafarians to the Ansars in the Sudan, to any of the Muslims who are currently now practicing Ramadan, when they get ready to go to Mecca, they all wear white robes to symbolize purity. Even in the walls of Egypt, you would see the pharaoh in white, and most of the time you would see the women dressed in white because they were mostly associated with the color white. But this is just showing that they went through the process of alchemy. And once they go through that process of alchemy, then they're washed clean in the blood of the Lamb, and they are then deemed to put on white, which symbolizes purity. So this is all that this is saying in verse 9. So we move on to verse 10. And they were shouting with a great roar, "Salvation comes from our God who sits on the throne and from the Lamb." For our SRC team, we know that the Lamb represents the top portion of the brain, which is ruled by Aries. And this is why this lamb is shown here around the throne, because it covers the area of the brain where the throne resides. If you look inside of, we have these three particular glands. We have the pineal gland, which rules the spiritual essence. We have the pituitary gland, which rules your physical essence. And then you have what they call the thalamus. The thalamus is a word in Greek, which means bedchamber, bedroom, inner chamber, the inner room, the inner house, the upper room. And this is the throne that they're surrounding. When it talks about these children sitting around the throne, or as we're going to read in the next couple of verses, where the angels are around the throne. That's all it is talking about that process when you go through the alchemical process and you are washed clean and you're washed, then you're going to start to receive these messages from the creators once you go into meditation, and you get these messages. Messages only simply mean angels. Angels comes from the word angles, because in astrology, what you have is different aspects of angles when you're reading your natal chart that will give you either a positive message or a negative message. So you have like 60-degree angles, 90-degree angles, 120-degree angles. Yes, Queen Anala, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I just want to make sure I understood and make sure our audience understood that when we are talking about the people being happy, or the crowd being excited, and those they are excited because they have moved from one chakra to the next chakra, and now they have finally reached the crown chakra, and that's why they're so excited. So they have opened each one of those seals, and now they're at that seventh seal, and now they really have something to celebrate, or I should say we have something to celebrate when we reach that higher chakra.
Yes. Think of the word salvation and salt. Okay. The Bible is routinely equated the people of the earth or with the salt of the earth. So now in something called, again, in medical astrology, they have what they call constitutions. And they have these 12 mineral cell salts. that correspond to the 12 zodiac signs. And so these salts are, once you transition back to the earth, you turn into these 12 essence, these 12 particular mineral cell salts, like called calcium, silica, nitrophosphate, calimur. So these are different, yeah, these are different mineral cell salts that exist that compose what our bodies are. So when you see the word salvation and salt, going back to even the whole Lot story, is dealing with the essence of the body. So then as you ascend these different chakras, then your body takes on a physical as well as a spiritual essence, where contact with that higher realm will be able to carry any disease on the physical realm. So this salvation, of course, we've always equated it with the word save. And this is what's happening is you're ascending and you have breaking free from that lower grip, that lower nature, that 666 essence. And then you went up to the 999 essence. So then that's what it is that once you've crossed these different areas and you get to the very top, you've reached the mountaintop. As the children of Israel got to the land of Canaan, the land of milk and honey, they reached salvation, but Moses didn't make it there, so he didn't get to have salvation. So that's what all it's talking about, is just climbing those ladders. So you're absolutely right. Getting to that seventh chakra, which is where God resides. That's the ultimate place we want to be.
Wow, that's great. Lavelle, Dr. Griffo mentioned 666, and I know when people hear that number, they often think that is a bad number and it means the devil and all that. Can you give us a little insight on what 666 means?
Well, the 666, it places us in a higher level of knowledge and attainment. And I say attainment because when we add 6 plus 6 plus 6, it equals the number 18. And the number 18 added and reduced is the number 9. And so that takes us back with what we're studying right now about the number 9 and being up there in the throne in our state of consciousness. And then also the number 9 deals with a very, very ultra high state of consciousness and state of being. So the 666 is very integral to understand, and the evil which has surrounded the number 666 is just a great misnomer that, as I coined the phrase, the wickedly wise have placed on the unconscious minds of many people who are unlearned in terms of the vibration of the 666. The number 6 in itself also deals with a high constitution. It deals with a higher level of life. It deals with a higher level of health, okay, and well-being, and also serving and giving to other people. So all of these are part and parcel in terms of developing a high, ultra high state of consciousness.
Yes.
So much. That's so good to know, because so many people for so many years, and I was one of those people that thought 666 was related to what I thought was the devil. So thank you for sharing and giving us some insight on that.
Yeah, that's bad. Definitely misinformation, because if you recall, the Queen of Sheba bought Solomon gold, and the total amount of gold that Solomon got was 666 talents of gold. There's also a guy in the Bible, I can't think of his name right now, but he had 666 children. So all it is, as the brother said, it's dealing with a higher consciousness with the number 18. And if you look at the measure the spinal column of the average male, it is 18 inches. And the spinal column is exactly what those 7 chakras rise up to get to the higher consciousness. once you, get past the top chakra, the top spinal vertebrae called the not the axis, the atlas. And the
Right,
atlas
the Atlas.
was the god that had the dome on his head, you know what I mean, representing this was the dome, because at the top of
Right.
your vertebrae, the top axis is called the atlas, and then the one after that is the axis, and there's 7 of them. These represent the 7 archangels. So as you look at your vertebrae, it's broken down into the superior, then the thorax, and then the lumbar. So there's 3 different divisions, but the top 7 are called the superior cervical vertebrae or something like that. But they represent those 7 higher archangels, which also goes into the 7 chakras, and et cetera, et cetera. We know how special the number 7 is once it comes to the Bible. Yes, the number 666 is definitely not a bad number. It deals with wisdom and at the highest level. Okay, where were we at? Verse number 10. We're on number 11. And the angels were standing around the throne and around the elders and the 4 living beings, and they fell before the throne with their faces to the ground and worshiped God. So these 4 beasts that surround the throne are your 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. You have Taurus, which represents the bull. You have Aquarius, which represents the face of a man. You have Leo, which represents the face of a lion. And then you have finally Scorpio, which is the eagle, because inside of the constellation of Scorpio, near it is what they call in the Greek Aquila, which is the word for eagle. And this is where the wings come from. So when you look at ancient Babylon, they have this symbol. In Islam, they have the same symbol where they said Muhammad wrote it from Mecca to Jerusalem. It had the face of a woman and the body of a horse, and it had wings. So it's these same 4 animals that some even theorize that the great Sphinx once had as well. That it had the face of the female pharaoh. It has the body of a lion. They said that it had wings, but because of the water erosion, the wings are no longer there. So you can kind of look at it that way. But it represents those 4 cardinal points. those 4 fixed points of the zodiac sign, which coincide with some of the holidays in American in the American calendar. For example, Groundhog's Day would be in the Aquarius. May 1st is Taurus. Then you have August 1st, which deals with the lion. And then you have November 1st, which is Scorpio. And then, like I said, February 1st is Aquarius. So certain days in our calendar coincide with these 4 fixed points of the zodiac. And this is why if you look at certain images of Jesus from way back in the Renaissance times, he'll be surrounded by those 4 animals. Again, the eagle, the bull, the lion, and the face of a human. So
let me ask you something, Dr. Griffo, before you move on down. You say you call those signs the fixed signs. Why are those signs fixed? Do they have anything to do with the seasons, like winter, spring, summer, fall, or north, south? What does that have to do with them being fixed and the other ones are not fixed?
Yes, they're called in the astrological world cross quarter days. So, for instance, every season starts on either equinox or solstice. Equinox meaning equal day, equal night. Solstice meaning the sun stands still. So the latest one that we just went through was Easter coming in, or the beginning of spring. So between each season is 13 weeks. So between spring and summer is going to be 13 weeks. That halfway point at that 45-day point is where you would have a fixed sign. So every 45 days, every 90 days from a 45 day is, a different thing. So these are fixed. So they're fixed between the signs. So between every season, there's a cross quarter day where you're going to have one of these holidays. So again, March 20th was the beginning of spring. June 20th is the beginning of summer. September 20th is the beginning of fall. And then December 20th is roughly the beginning of winter. But between those 90 days, at the 45-day period or the cross quarter day period, you have what they call a fixed sign. So then this gave birth to the 8-pointed clock. So when you look at the wheel of Buddha, it has 8 spokes. If you look at the symbol for Anu in ancient Sumer, it has 8 points. If you look at even the zodiac calendar in Egypt, in the Dendera temple, it has 8 points. And then your American government followed that up by even having in the Oval Office, it has 8 doors representing those 8 spokes.
Wow.
Right.
What's the significance of the number 4 here? Because we're talking about 4 cardinal directions, 4 seasons. So what's the significance of number 4? Does it represent some form of stability?
You want to take that one, Brother Lavelle, or you want me to try to answer?
Yeah, so I'll take part of this. Well, the number 4 represents the stability, the dependability, what life is based upon, what life is built upon. The number 4 is so essential that without the number 4, there can be no manifestation. The number 4 also deals with substance. In numerology, we consider the number 4 to be a power number, a power source, a groundbreaking number. That's why whenever one has to deal with the number 4, they have to put their all and all into it, because the number 4 is a very serious type of vibration, a serious type of energy. And you find that those people who have the number 4, when they get to the business of work, they are very, very serious about what they need to do. And also with the number 4, you need to plan. So this tells us that the Creator, God, the universe, did a great deal of planning in setting up the conditions by which we live. 4 ultimately is the number which represents order. Without order, there is no existence in this world that we live in. And one more thing I'd like to say about the number 4, and what Brother Griffo brought out in terms of astrologically. In numerology, we have the same exact thing, but we call it differently. We refer to them as the royal stars. You have the royal stars of the bull, man, the lion, and the eagle. And each of these has a particular number of vibration. For the lion, it's the number 23. People who have the number 23 are very endowed with a tremendous amount of power and ability and success in this world. And the same thing goes for 51, 37, and 65. Okay, so the numerology and the astrology, they walk in hand with each other in terms of what the Bible has to say. And also, I'd like to say, we have many people who are walking around who have these vibrations, but they don't know it because the modern education system, including some of the religious systems, has not taught them this. So these are some of the things that I like to, I always bring out when I see it in one's numerical blueprint.
So the 4 creatures around the throne, let me turn on my light here. The 4 creatures around the throne, this is a little bright, sorry. Could we say that it's safe to say that we should be adopting the qualities of these creatures for stability? The eagle, the eagle, the bull.
Yeah, definitely. We need to have the tenacity of a bull, the mind of a man, the spirit and the heart of a lion, and the ascension of the eagle. Yes, we definitely need to have that all incorporated into our daily lives. And as I said earlier, many of us, when you delve into the mystery of the numbers in astrology, you will see that it is present there. And it's fixed, like as Brother Griffith said, it's fixed there. These are fixed signs. And also these represent entryways into this planet, this earth realm that we live on.
Okay, is that the relevance of the beast being reverent, or having reverence to the throne and to the Lamb?
Well,
Oh, yes.
it does, and you have to understand as well, this is Northern Hemisphere information. So in the Southern Hemisphere, you know, they have things like the jaguar for a symbol, whereas those of us on the Northern Hemisphere, we use, say, Osiris or Orion as our marker point. So from our perspective in the Northern Hemisphere, then yes, at certain times of the year, we knew that the sun would give us a certain amount of daylight hours and the moon would have a certain amount of time. So then we would mark those days. And from those days, we would know the distance between X and Z is using, you know, algebra calculation is blase, blase, blase. So then we divided the day into 4 quadrants, and then further divided it into multi 8 quadrants, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, until we got to a 60-hour minute, 30 days in a month. If you go and look at the calendar in Mexico, or the pyramid in Mexico, it has 4 points, and they have 90 steps of each point. So 40 times 9 is 360, which represented a year. And then in ancient Egypt, they went and added 5 more years. In their mythology, they say that Tahuti won those 5 more days to make it 365 days. So yes, it was just dealing with the way that the sun from our vantage point rotates around, or we rotate around the sun, and then the different parts of the planet, the different parts of the sky that we see being in the Northern Hemisphere. But again, in the Southern Hemisphere, like we just came into the winter months, to spring, and now they're going into the fall. So when they look in the sky, they're seeing a slightly different constellation viewpoint than what we're looking at. Again, this is why you'll see in Mexico, they have, what's his name? Coatlicetl or something like that. I can't never pronounce the name quite right,
Yeah,
but
it's a Kodo.
Yeah, that's it. It's a feathered serpent, right? And
Right.
we have the same thing in Egypt. We have the same thing in Babylon, but it's a slight difference, a slight variation there. And then they would use, to go back into Tamisha's question, they would use the symbols of these animals that were in their area, and they would take on those characteristics of those animals whenever they needed to, say, go hunting, or if they needed to go and do a ritual for this and do a ritual for that. They would put on the mask of these different ancestral idols that they had, and they would try to conjure up that spirit. Not that they were worshiping animals, as misinformed people say. It was just that they saw the characteristics and the attributes of those particular animals, and then they utilized them to perform certain tasks.
That makes a lot of sense. So what you're saying is depending on what you're preparing to do, you would put on that characteristics. For example, the bull, if you were getting ready to engage in something where you know you had to be powerful and utilize that strength, then of course you want to put on the characteristics of that bull so that you plunge right through it. So it's not worshiping that animal, it is putting on that characteristic so you can get something done.
Absolutely. So right when like right now in ancient Egypt, they would have been plowing the fields to get ready to start the season of plowing, right? And they would have used the bull to plow the seed. So then now, being that we're in this time of year, now they're using a bull as the symbol for, because we're going into Taurus, or we're into Taurus right now. So then as you went through the year, then they would put on different aspects of it. The lion is not king of the jungle. Lions don't even live in the jungle. However, the Leo is equated with the sun at its highest point in the sky. And because the zodiac is full of animals, you got the crab, you got the lion, the cow, the ram, the goat, the horse. So you got all of these animals. So now it becomes king of the jungle, because Leo is
all this time I thought I was the king.
you are the queen.
You're the queen of the jungle.
Okay, so I'm thinking about cultures that keep what we call engraved images, right? So would this be synonymous with saying, well, I think there's some place in the Bible that says we shouldn't do that would be sinning against God, so to speak. So can we say that goes back to a time where keeping, animal-like images wasn't a form of worship, but a form of identifying with the heart of that animal or the characteristic of that animal?
Or the characteristics of a family member that was brave or smart or whatever. You follow what I'm saying? So we would fashion those things as well to engage the energy of those ancestors. So, but in the biblical sense, what they said, don't worship graven images, they was just simply saying is don't cater to your lower nature, because from here to here is heaven, from earth to heaven, and from here down is from heaven down in the earth. So if you just look at the words that are associated with our lower nature, for example, they say that the stomach is the second brain. Well, we understand that the brain has God inside of the brain. The stomach and the brain are made of the same material. Yet the words for stomach we use the word gut. In German, they use the word gut. We use the word abdomen, right? Or abdomen, father of the demon. You see what I'm saying? So certain words that use the word belly, and in the Bible they call it Baal or Beelzebub. So then all of these things that are associated with our lower nature are also kind of associated with words for God, with a slight variation of the tongue. Right. So it was just dealing with our Lord. So it had nothing to do with the fashioning of graven images. If you recall in the story where Abraham sent his servant to go get a son for Isaac, he said, don't marry these Canaanites amongst whom I dwell. Go back to my homeland and get a wife for my son. Well, remember, if Abraham left his family's house because they had graven images, yet he still sent his child back, his servant back to get a son for his wife, get a wife for his son. So then they didn't really have a problem with graven images. The Israelites routinely married the Egyptians and the Ethiopians, who they claim were pagan people who worship golden images, etc. So it wasn't that, it was just that they were dealing with a lower nature energy. And that's why it says graven images.
So
they went through a lot of work to, when I say the religious sector went through a lot of work to try to make people afraid of things. They did a lot of work just to make people fear the unknown.
And so for people today who see these images, like if you were to visit temples, you would see part man, part woman, part calf, or part woman, part elephant, or part deity and part some animal. So when people are looking at this, what should they be seeing instead of something that is considered pagan or evil?
They're looking at various zodiac ages as well as various times of the year. For instance, let's go back to Egypt again. If you look at the Sphinx, right, which has the head of a lion, the head of a human and the body of a lion, right? Well, that just so happens to coincide with the zodiac ages of Aquarius and Leo, which are exactly 6 months apart. Now, because of what we call processional slippage, which means when the universe or the sun takes its rotation around, it looks like it's going backwards. Anybody ever spun a fan or saw a wheel and it's going this way, but then it also looked like it's going in the opposite direction? That's the way processional slippage looks from a slower vantage point for us. So back about, say, 10 to 20, 15,000 years ago, the sun would, summer begin in Leo and winter begin in Aquarius. Now that the way it's moving now, it's moving backwards. So now the summer begins in Cancer and winter begins in Capricorn. Okay, so that's one way that you see this merging of the two symbols, as well as if you look at the two symbols in Aquarius and Pisces. Aquarius is, of course, the woman with water, and then Pisces is the fish. So you combine those two, what do you get? What they call Dagon, which is the man who has the head and then the body of a fish. So then you have these mixtures of the zodiac ages to give you that. You look at Taurus, which is the bull, and then Gemini, which is the two twins, which is the Minotaur, which is the man has a head, but he got the body of a bull or something like that. So that's what it is. It's showing different zodiac ages, as well as showing the different aspects of when we recognize the summer and when the winter will come into existence. Great question, though.
So, Doctor, that slippage, that occurs over a cycle, right?
The what? I'm sorry?
The slippage you were talking about.
Yes.
That's a
Yeah.
cycle, right? A cosmic cycle.
It takes so many thousands of years for it to happen. Nobody on this planet is able to live from one cycle to the next. But because of what they've recorded over time, they understand now that when you look at these things, you can understand what the people are actually identifying. See, the Sphinx is so old that it has water erosion lines on it that they, through geological surveys, they realized that there was a flood during this time that eroded the water around the area where the Sphinx is. So then now when you look at it, you're like, okay, so if the Sphinx is pointing due east, why was it pointing due east? And then you start to backtrack and you study Egyptian cosmology, and you're like, oh, okay, it's representing the summer and the winter, because Egypt had 3 seasons that they recognized, and then in each of those seasons, they were corresponding to the rainy season, the harvest season, the dead season, etc. And then they would make these markers to identify those particular things. This is why the deities also changed. They went from the bull cult, which was the age of Taurus, and then it had, before that was the ram cult, which was with Amun, who was identified as a ram-headed deity. And you know what I mean? And Egypt was destroyed before they got into the era of the fish. But Christianity took it up, and their symbol became the fish.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you look at most of the biblical stories where they talk about these bull deities, even in India, they don't eat cows now because their civilization came around during the age of Taurus. Well, before Taurus was Gemini. So Taurus would be Abraham, Aries would be Moses, and then Jesus would be Pisces. But before that is Gemini. So then this is where you're dealing with Adam and Eve and their twins, Cain and Abel.
Right.
You follow? So you keep going back and back and back. Now, if you go and study what they call in Egypt the Palomero stone, it's a written image on stone which lists all of the deities, not all of the deities, but all of the rulers of ancient Egypt, right? And then you go back to one that's called Serket, who is the scorpion deity. So then that means that it then went all the way back around to where Scorpio was at one point. You know, they recognized the Scorpion constellation. So then this is what happened. And this is another reason why you know that Egypt existed before the other civilizations, because of the images that are portrayed there. When you're dealing with Babylon, which a lot of people say Sumer and Babylon was first, well, they start with the bull cult, with Enki. And the bull cult is Taurus. But we know before Taurus was Aries, and they have in Egypt Amun, which is a ram-headed deity. If you go outside the temple in Karnak, they got like 1,000 rams lined up.
Exactly. Exactly.
So then this is how you know that these civilizations, how far a civilization goes back, based off of the images that they have within their culture. And again, most of them start with Taurus. Even the Bible pretty much starts with Taurus, with Abraham, because he's the most heavily talked about figure in the book of Genesis. And then his progeny is the one that, you know, gave forth. But if you just follow the symbolism in the Bible, it walks you right through it, and you can see it, and you're just like, wow. You know, if y'all want me to keep going, I'll keep going on this. But it kind of blows.
Keep going, but just keep going, because this is so good. You know, but I just want to just pause just for a second and say that it's for those that are looking at this on YouTube or here as our audience today. This is why SRC does this, because think about it. We lost so much of our history because of what religion taught us. We were taught to ignore those things that came before even Christianity, and only worship and believe what we were being taught. So I think this is just so important. So yes, please continue to teach us, Dr. Griffo.
No, we're just sharing. As the brother Lavelle alluded to, or even said it outright, you know, the number 4 deals with stability, but that's also deals with Taurus. Taurus deals with stability. Taurus deals with abundance. And Abraham, as you know, what was the story with him and Lot? They were what? They were mixing cows, right? Cows are Taurus. So Abraham, and what kind of bull is it? A Brahma bull, Abraham, Brahma. Yeah. It's the same word there. So then Abraham brought in the age of Taurus. Then 2,160 years later, they were supposed to go into the age of Aries. So this is where the Bible picks up the story of Moses going up to the mountain, and then he came down, and the children of Israel had fashioned a golden calf, Taurus, and Moses got mad, and God slew some of the priests. And, you know, they were saying that you were supposed to go from Taurus, you no longer do things in the way that the people in the age of Taurus did things. Now you're supposed to go into the way that the people in the age of Aries does things. And Aries is the ruling energy. So this is why with Moses, you had a lot of war, you had a lot of bloodshed, you had a lot of fiery things going on, because Aries deals with fire. It is ruled by fire, okay? Parting of the Red Sea, you know what I mean? All of these symbolisms dealing with the number, with the constellation of Aries, even to go so far as to slip in the word I am, because the motto for Aries is I am. Okay.
Right.
Now, so Moses then dies, and he passes it on to a guy named Joshua, right? Now, in ancient Hebrew, there was no letter J, so it was Y. So his name was Yeshua, the same name that the original name for Jesus in the Hebrew language. So then Moses passes it on to Joshua, which is prepping us for the age of Pisces. Joshua's dad's name was Nun. Nun is the Hebrew, the 14th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, but it's also the word for fish. Fast forward on to Jonah, and what does Jonah happen? He gets eaten by fish. So it's getting you ready to prep into Pisces, because we're going backwards. We started with Taurus, then we went to Aries, then we're going to Pisces, and then we're going to go into Aquarius. So what happened when
Right.
Jesus got on the scene? He's the fisherman. You know, he has the 2 fish, which is the symbol for Pisces, right? And then Jesus said in the book of Luke that, you know, when the Passover comes, meaning we're going from one age to the new age, he said, you know, what's going to happen at the end of the world, what they said in the Bible, but in the Greek language, it's the word aeon, which is the age. So then he said, what's going to happen at the end of the age? Show us, Master, what is going to happen. And he said, not until you see the man with the pitcher of water. Pitcher of water is Aquarius. So then you see how we went from from the twins, which is Cain and Abel, then to Taurus, which is Abraham, then to Moses, which is Aries, then to Jesus, which was Pisces, and now Jesus telling us to go into the age of Aquarius, which deals with knowledge. And this is why he said, you shall know the truth. Whereas Christians say, because they follow the age of of Pisces, I believe. If you look up the model for Pisces, it's I believe. So then they give you little clues as you read it. When you understand astrology and the different modalities and the models and the color scheme, etc., then you'll be able to see the story. It just jumps right out at you. And you're like, wow. This is
You are just like that, just like, wow. You know, so that's letting us know that people who were taught to ignore zodiacs, astrology, we should be looking at astrology. We should be understanding what all of that means. Because right now, as you just mentioned, we are in the season of Aquarius, which is knowledge. And so
Right.
this is the time right now that you should be seeking and getting all the knowledge that is available to us.
absolutely.
But if you're taught that it was a sin, right? You're taught that it was a sin to look at that. You have people afraid to dig deeper and look further.
Oh,
They
go ahead.
were purposely mistaught that. So then again, you know, they wouldn't question things. They wouldn't be able to, let's say that I came along back that time and said I was somebody sent from God, and I had knowledge of astrology. And I know that in so many days, Mercury is going to go retrograde. And so I could point to that star and say, in a couple of days, this star is not going to move. Or when, you know, I know that the summer solstice is coming, or the winter solstice, or if there's going to be when the sun is no longer there, eclipse. If I know these types of things before everybody else does, then I can come along now and tell you what's going to happen and say that God told me that the sun was going to disappear out of the sky for so many hours or so many days. And because you are primitive people and you don't understand these things, you know what I mean, then you're going to be like, wow. Or knowing that what happens in Mercury retrograde is that there's going to be communication problems. There's going to be electrical problems. There's going to be travel problems. There's going to be, you know, I know I'm not supposed to sign contracts. So if I know these things in advance, and then I tell you what's going to happen before it actually happens, then you're looking at me like, who is this guy? You know? So to keep you from that knowledge would be beneficial to me, because now I become the go-to person.
All powerful, all knowing.
Exactly. So then, and that's why Jesus said, you know, if you follow the way that if you follow my words, you know what I mean, seek first the kingdom of God, you know what I mean, seek first the kingdom of God, which we know the kingdom of God is in us, which is what he said all of the time. Then he said, you'll be able to do either greater things than what I've done. So then if with us having this, with Queen Anala having this program, her and Brother Mark, and then now all of a sudden, all of us are coming together, sharing information, and we share with everybody else, then now we're going to be just like Jesus, knowing how to predict certain things, because Jesus knew, according to that story, that the age of Aquarius is coming. That's why he said, look for the man with the pitcher of water.
It appears that some of us who practice certain religions, are stuck in a certain zodiac, so to speak. We're stuck in that's the stagnancy and evolution. Is that correct? So when we decide to take on certain ideologies, and we say, okay, we're following the teachings of just Jesus, we're following the teachings of just, so we're keeping ourselves stuck and not evolving into.
That's an amazing question statement, because that is absolutely true. Because when it was time to go from the age of Aries to Pisces, if you remember, the people didn't want to do what Jesus said do. And so he said, I didn't come to change the law. I came to give you grace and truth. Well, grace and truth is associated with Pisces. And now that the age of Aquarius is here now, we're supposed to move away from the believing and the way that the Christians did things into the age of knowing. So you're absolutely right. People are stuck in those zodiac ages and not transitioning from one step to the next step to the next step. And it's shown specifically in the Bible. And the same thing, like I said, was happening in ancient Egypt, where I'm sure you guys have heard of the great Pharaoh Akhenaten, right? He's the one that they say started monotheism in ancient Egypt, right? He really didn't, but this is what they say. So it was some of the same things happening there. They didn't want to go from one age to the next age, and they wanted to revert back to certain ages. Same thing happened in ancient Sumer with the story of Enki and Enlil and Marduk, where Marduk was saying it was my time to rule as the bull of heaven. And then somebody was like, no, it's not your time to rule yet. So that's all it is once you understand, have the knowledge of how this cycle works, then you'll be able to see that it's time to move on from one energy to the next. And even still, you're going to feel that energy because of, as you know, you've known, we've known each other for what, a good 4 or 5 years, that people are transitioning from one stage to the next. That energy is here.
And so this is how we keep karmic cycles repetitive. So creating karmic cycles was on purpose, so to speak.
In the vein of the way you're saying karma, yes. Personally, I don't accept karma, but in the vein of the way that it's taught out of the Hindu religion, yes, absolutely.
All right.
If I may add, karma, when I studied further and further back, I came to information that karma actually is a weapon that is used against people to keep them in abject fear.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. That's why I had to let it go.
Yep.
When I learned the same.
Yep, we got to let it go. We have to have knowledge that overrides the karma. So many people get stuck in karma. I don't even like really using the word, but so many people relate to it that I do.
Right, I'm with you. I feel the same way. I don't like using the word. That's why I had to preface it with the way that she's explaining karma. But from my understanding as well, that karma was used by the ruling Brahma class against what they call the Dalits, or the untouchables.
Exactly.
Them from wanting to ascend into higher society, but keep them regulated within the lower rungs of society, so then that the Brahmas can enjoy being treated like gods, and these darker skinned people will forever be stuck at the lower realms of society because of their karma from a previous life. They have to live out this karma. Now, what kind of head job is that?
But this is what's happening now, which is why I brought it up, right? This is what this system is built on, is this ideology of karma. So I think it's important to bring up right now.
Yes.
And how to dissolve that idea in our minds, how to dissolve that in our own lives.
And that is by doing good works, trying to stay and reside within the throne area of your thoughts, you know what I mean? As well as, your heart chakra doing good things. I think that's the best way to ensure that, the best that the universe has to offer you will come to you, because you're living in harmony with the universe, not because, of any other reason. But it's just my.
But also I think about the karma I think about the story of Noah, and that his sons, certain sons were going to be cursed because of whatever happened. So that was karma. That was, some people are still celebrating that karma when we shouldn't be. They should have moved on, and but they're still stuck in that era. So
Right.
that was great question,
No-
Tamisha. And I'm glad you said that, Dr. Griffo and Lavelle, because I always was thinking that, oh God, I don't want to deal with karma. I got to do this, so I won't deal with karma. Well, karma, now understand, has been a way to enslave us.
Yes. So absolutely
Okay.
a good question. I know we're out of time.
Yeah, we are out of time. I don't think it has anything to do with karma either. It's just the fact. But anyway, hey, really great conversation today. I really enjoyed it, especially that last part about karma. I'm glad to know that karma, we're not all the result of what we've done before. There's other things. So, anybody else got a comment before we sign off today?
I think Lavelle had one.
Val, do you have one last comment?
Yes, I just wanted to say, as we move into the area in the realm of Aquarius, Aquarius has to do with the number 11. And 11 deals with knowledge. However, Aquarius also has 2 rulers. They are Uranus and Saturn. Saturn is the planetary vibration energy which is used to keep people in fear. It's also referred as being the number of karma, which we now can reject. So all of us in the age of Aquarius, we got to drop the whole notion of karma.
Okay.
Okay. And when we do that, then we can expect true freedom.
Yeah. Well, we're going to sign off now. Really appreciate y'all. All of us here with SRC want to thank the audience for sitting in today's presentation. Our next broadcast will be on the 25th of this month at 10 o'clock Eastern as usual. So please join us as we continue revealing revelations. We really appreciate everyone's patronage and encourage you to email us your questions or comments at shiftingreligiousconcepts@gmail.com. And if anyone's interested in advertising with SRC, please contact us at the same email. And don't forget that this presentation will be available on YouTube within the next few days. Even if you attended today's program, please go to the Shifting Religious Concepts channel and give us a thumbs up and subscribe. This is one of the few ways we get public attention, and it really helps us to promote the SRC mission. So that does it for this broadcast. Once again, watch your email for our Zoom link, inviting you to attend our next recording session on the 25th of April. We wish you all peace, health, wisdom, and love, of course.